My name is Elizabeth Pfiester. I'm the founder and executive director of T1 International, which is a type 1 diabetes focused advocacy organization supporting people to advocate for their health rights all around the world. And I met Erin through that work.
My name is Ron Satija, and I am a lawyer in Austin, Texas.
I'm James Andrew Elliott, and I know Erin as a patient, a fellow advocate, collaborator, and a friend.
My name is Marie Mercurio, and I met Erin 6-7 years ago at an in-person meeting held by a pharmaceutical company.
My name is Karrie Higgins, and I knew Erin primarily through Twitter. We both do a lot of work in disability advocacy and healthcare advocacy, and that's kind of how I found her. So,
Erin and I first kind of met over Twitter when we were both participating in some healthcare chats.
I'm Erika Christiana, and I met Erin Gilmer through Twitter as well.
I remember when I first became aware of her because she was writing about patient experiences and how to talk to doctors and what kind of things you should document. This was about 2018. So I started following her around Twitter, and then she would say things and I would comment. And then it got to the point where we ended up going to the same kind of event so much that it just seemed ridiculous that we didn't know each other that well.
It's Chelsea Kotrla, and I knew her, actually we met on Twitter. She had lived in Austin for a while. She moved right around the time that I moved to Austin.
I'm Hannah Rebecca Rice, and I met Erin on Twitter in early 2017.
Alessandra Aoife Muller-Thyme. Erin was my friend. Erin was my friend. She was my fellow community member.
But we met because I was chronically ill and going through a really bad time, and that's how we met.
It was probably in about 2011 or so. And we were at this bar meeting.
She introduced herself, and she was so authentically present and willing to open up that I was immediately like taken in by her aura.
And she opened up about her recent suicide attempt at that time. Wow. And, had tried to kill herself and failed, and was wondering, what life held for her next, wondering how to move forward. And I just thought, wow, this person's really brave.
But she shared all of her health struggles with everyone in the room. And she concluded her introduction by telling everyone that she wasn't certain that she was going to be able to make the meeting because she had attempted to kill herself. Those were her words. I'm not trying to, minimize or use language that's going to be off-putting to anyone. Those were the words that she used. I attempted to end my own life. I wanted to kill myself, and I was not successful. And there was a gasp in the room when she said that, and I started to cry.
Somebody mentioned and showed me her online profile and the work that she did with health as a human right, and thought that's somebody I want to know. And we connected and kind of worked together on one of the early resources that T1 International put out, which was rights of people living with type 1 diabetes. And we just collaborated online, hadn't even really had a person-to-person, face-to-face conversation, but did a lot of work and could see just her dedication and desire to make things that would help people and make a difference.
We started out chatting and DMing, and then it soon progressed to, phone calls and talking and stuff. So she, we were advocates, but then we were also friends.
anytime we were going to talk, whether it was about something professional as kind of disability advocate colleagues, or just as a friend, she always made sure, no matter what was going on with her life, to ask me how I was feeling and whether I was comfortable talking at that moment. She was always very conscious of how other people are, how they feel, and what would happen if she put herself in their shoes.
And, the number one thing I would say is she was so authentic herself. She was so courageous in what she shared, just strikingly so. It's unusual in our society. She would share so much about herself, and that creates space for you to feel like, okay, well, I can be real about what's going on in my life then.
Erin was fearless. She was fierce. She was deeply empathetic. Despite having people have a lack of understanding of her, she had a tremendous well of ability to understand and empathize with others.
But then she actually studied how to listen to people and how to validate people. And she would, if I said something, she would, repeat back what I said in different words and just convey that she was hearing what I was saying, that my feelings were valid. What I was going through. She understood more than most can, I think, because we had so much in common with our struggles. But she would just sit and listen for as long as you needed, and she would always express what you're feeling is valid, and what you need is valid as a human being. And
how she did this, I'll never in my life, I'll never understand it. She could set aside the worst day of her life if she heard in my voice, if we hopped on the phone and heard in my voice that I was off. She was so intuitive, picked right up on it and said, hey, what's going on? And would steer the conversation in a way to help me reframe my thinking so that I could think more clearly and make better decisions. Erin struggled with emotional issues, and I think that, I think it's very sad that stigmatized her within certain groups of people.
You could also tell that she had a side of her that really wanted to enjoy life and make the best out of it and be lighthearted and she must have been 27 or 28 years old at that point. So somebody who wanted to be a kid as well, wanted to be a young adult and enjoy her life, and had been dealt a pretty heavy deck.
She had grit and she had determination, and she was willing to stand up for people and for herself, but that was fueled by how much she cares about how disabled people are viewed, how policies are, and how they are not supposed to be, in correcting some of those injustices. She had the determination, and she could speak with authority, but at the same time, she was able to kind of bridge the gap between a person who's this angry fighter and the person who was going to calmly demand their rights be respected. So, if she had to, she could be fierce, but she had this way about her.
Some of her final tweets that just sort of haunt me, where she said, I'm so sorry, I failed you. And she never failed us. She never, ever failed us. But the fact that was what was on her mind right before she died, I think tells you what was most important to her. And that was her advocacy.
When I think of advocacy, I think of those who are willing to step up with the knowledge that they have learned in order to help others and affect change. And that is definitely who Erin, all of her work compiled embodies that.
To stick up for patients and not apologize for that. And I think that's what Erin did.
She was a fierce advocate, one of the fiercest, strongest people that I have ever known.
I remember she was testifying for a bill in Colorado, and a lot of us were watching the testimony online. And I know she had to like drag herself out of the apartment, and she was in a lot of physical pain, drive there, get parking. And I understand too, like, because it's difficult for me to walk now, and it's like painful. I got a cane. I think Erin at the end had a cane as well. So she had to go through all that pain, had to prepare all that testimony, all unpaid, and like gave really brilliant testimony for this bill. And I remember after she gave the testimony, she messaged me, and she was in the bathroom and she was like crying because she didn't know if it was worth it. She didn't think her testimony was as good as it could have been. And yeah, I said, I really respect what you did. I thought it was great. And, I think you outclassed a lot of people who were getting paid big money by pharma to be there.
That was also a very important part of who she was. And I think why she blogged so much of her personal stuff was because she knew if she shared that, then perhaps somebody else, no matter what position, could take and run with it and maybe, move the goalposts a little bit further in the direction of the patient.
There's so much you can do on a big level, like getting policy changed by, talking to people in Washington. And then there's the little things, supporting people, fundraising.
There's so many different ways to be an advocate. So for me though, advocacy, there's a lot of people who sort of just share their story, or they share what they're going through. And that can be advocacy, because telling your story can create more awareness,
A desire to see things change for the better for, not just disabled people, all patients, every patient.
For me personally, and I'm not saying this for anybody else, it can go beyond the personal and take it into how do you take this personal story and use it to create change. So for some people, just sharing is one step that can create change. For me personally, and for Erin, I believe too, it was always, here's something personal, but I want to approach it in a way that you can take this personal story and use it to think about a system, to think about like the larger system of healthcare and all the different isms that are operating within it, racism, sexism, classism, all those things, and just sort of think about how the story fits into this bigger picture.
I think if Erin wasn't born the way she was in the condition that she was, well, one, she might still be alive, but two, I don't think she would have been as effective advocate as she was. So that's kind of the tragedy of it.
There's one thing that I remember in particular where I said something that there was like a commercial for like hard-boiled eggs already peeled in a bag, and it just looked so unappetizing to me, and I was just like, who would eat something like that? And she very firmly but gently said, disabled people, but it's a great source of protein and it's easy if it's already there. And so she challenged me to, and I see something that was like for your knee-jerk reaction, is just like, why is this a thing? She challenged me to think about, okay, what disability may this be helping someone overcome?
But, she had a lot of very heavy experiences that just gave her a lot of compassion. And, she definitely spent her life, her adult life, helping people. I don't think she'd even started law school yet, and she was a victim advocate for at the DA's office in Denver.
She knew the suffering in her own life. And when you know that you're suffering, you know that there are millions of other people out there in the same boat as you who need help. And I think that's what drove her. The knowledge that it's everywhere, that things need to change, that no one is doing anything. And if we want anything done, we have to do it ourselves. That's the nature of this.
One thing about her was she was very direct. And so if you were misinformed, she was going to let you know. But if you knew her, she would let you know in a way that never came across as like as like her being a know-it-all or pushy or something like that. Like she was wanting you to learn and do better, and have the right information. Granted, if you didn't know her and you just came at her with some bad information, you might not necessarily get that kind of response. But she was just very caring about the people that she cared about.
When she took a seat at an advocacy table, which is what we were there for, she was genuine, she was authentic, and she wasn't trying to be someone that she was not, nor was she trying to hide behind the struggles. She didn't do it for the purposes of attention or for the purposes of sympathy. It was, this is who I am. And you could just tell from the tone of her voice and the matter-of-fact way that she stated this, that it was coming from a place so deep within her, and she was just always willing to just put it out there in the hopes that, just please hear me, because I'm always going to speak my authentic truth.
Community is people who you talk to, people who understand you or want to understand you. It's people who are in the same boat as you. And I think the way that's kind of been changing is it doesn't necessarily have to be in your physical location. And I think especially for disabled people,
we try to make change in a big way and small ways. And everyone does what they're able to do. We have some people in this community who are able to talk to people in DC and lobby for us and work with different organizations that form policy, that form laws. There are some people who, their whole thing is mutual aid, and they just do that. There's people who, like Erin, who wrote the book on trauma-informed care and other health care.
It was like I could rant and rave about a horrible doctor's visit or something, and her first reaction was not, oh, try this or do this. Her first reaction was just like, that just really sucks. And just having somebody just say, that's really crappy, and I'm sorry that you're having this horrible experience.
Yeah.
And I get it. Just that little bit, super helpful, because it's one of those things you don't get until you get it. You just can't. There's no way you can understand being chronically ill until something has happened where you're in bed for a year and a half,
And the other thing is amplifying each other's voices. Everyone has something important to say about the way we're living. And it's just, you can do both and make a big difference. And that's what she was all about.
At first, it was just overwhelming to see how many people she had just individually reached out to and helped. Like, people were just coming out and being like, hey, she helped me with this, or hey, she helped me with that, or hey, she DM'd me about this. And it wasn't any sort of publicity thing or for ego or for anything else other than using what she had learned and she had gathered and experienced to help others not go through the same sort of pain.
But my favorite memory of her was just a very recent one where a friend of mine was having a desperate legal problem. It was her mother was being kicked out of a nursing home in Florida, and she was having trouble finding an attorney, and they give you 24 hours to figure out if you're going to appeal this decision or not. And I knew I had an ace in my pocket by being able to call Erin. Healthcare law was her field. And so I called her, and I want to say, less than an hour later, I had all the information in front of me that that I needed in order to just send along to my friend and say, here, let's read through this together, let's figure it out. And it just spoke of her, just her intelligence and her ability and her professional ability. I don't know, it was very impressive. When I reached out to her for help, she just gave it immediately, which is the kind of person that she was. So
And I think, if Erin wasn't mad at you at some point, then you weren't close to her. Like, she got mad at everyone. And the thing is, like, she was normally right.
I think the fact that she could be incredibly supportive and empathetic, despite, again, her having to deal with some of the most difficult challenges that anybody has to deal with. And, I don't know if you've heard from other people, some people would say she has a strong personality or a fiery personality. But she was always able to sort of try to learn from things herself, as well as teach others, and sort of circle back around and, I don't know, give out love, despite, again, being in incredible pain.
You shoulder a lot living with multiple chronic illnesses, and Erin had 18. She had a ton, and some of them, like her mental health diagnoses and things, some of them carried a lot of stigma. So, she was always kind of at the forefront, leading that charge of, like, don't always judge a book by its cover. You can't, and look at people for who they are, not necessarily, their circumstances. Don't be so quick to judge them.
She was a mentor for a lot of people, like for me, and then for I could list off 24 people. I mean, when you saw that she died, there was all these people coming out of the woodwork that I had no idea were talking to Erin, and like I had no idea she had like a strong connection with, but she did. So yeah, I mean, she must have like woken up every day and just like helped people all day.
Right. I don't think Erin ever gave herself credit for anything she did. I don't think she gave herself credit for being a good person. She didn't think she deserved, like, she thought that she deserved, like, I wrote something that's good, it should be published. Why isn't that happening? But she wasn't looking for recognition. Right. She just wanted to change things for the better. And that was her, like, inside and out, every ounce of her being. I want people to know her work. Her work is so important. I don't know why and because she was a woman, because she was disabled, she didn't get not the recognition, but her work didn't get the attention it deserved. I really hope that changes now. I really hope a lot of people look at what she did and said, we need this everywhere, especially the trauma-informed care. That should be in every single hospital, medical center, that should be taught in medical school, trauma-informed care, especially the things she wrote.
She taught me a lot about life in that aspect too, and just that everybody, no matter what, has dignity and worth as a human being.
But I certainly benefited from it, and I can name 24 people who benefited from it, and there's probably another couple hundred who benefited from it that I don't even know.
So we started talking about different things like trauma-informed care, which she was huge on, and she was a leader in that regard, like well before it became a buzzword in the healthcare community. She was actually teaching people what it meant and what those interventions meant and things like that.
I want people to know that despite the fact she was in such agony, such pain, suffering, you can, on a level it's very hard to imagine. And she did what she could, and she did everything still. She was too sick to be a lawyer. but it didn't stop her from writing. It didn't stop her from being the kind of person she was, who is like, you have a problem? Let me see how I can help you. Is this a problem? Let me see what I can do about it.
Yeah.
I'm really upset about this. Let me write about it. Let me see what I can do to change, and then let people know. I want everyone to know her work was so important, and she was so important.
Like she started a chapter of Health 2.0 in Austin, which was as a health IT conference. She worked as a guardian ad litem, advocating or trying to help foster children navigate Medicaid. And she started this really cool project called, it's called the Research Loop, where she was actually, because she had been reading medical research a lot, she realized she had questions for the researchers. So she said, being myself, I emailed them, and then they were happy to receive my feedback. So she started this thing where she was trying to invite other patients to actively give feedback on research. She basically thought that patient voices were so important, even at the research level, and that there are very, very few opportunities for patients to kind of give input as to what should be researched. So she actually started a project where patients could do that, which I think is really incredible.
She was so thorough and passionate with helping others and giving a process in which that help could turn into action.
Yeah.
And that was completely, there's not many people in life that I would say, as far as I've experienced, would go beyond in helping generate action from advice. But she had a way of doing that. And as someone who felt really lost and still does, it was very comforting. It was comforting because you didn't feel like you were alone going through it.
It's all one thing. Erin the activist, Erin the healthcare lawyer, Erin the person who is going through hell herself, sees that you're having a bad day, and then privately goes to you and says, hey, are you okay? If you want to talk about it, I'm here for you. She was all of these things. And there isn't one thing that was more important. It was just everything at once.
To me, so few of us have ever been in the presence of someone who can truly hold space for other people's pain, that I think it's unusual and maybe even scary. To have somebody validate, accept, and not try to fix you, just accept you for who you are and what you've experienced. And that's exactly who she was. And I think she taught us how to do that too. And it's not easy to do. I mean, she even admitted that she couldn't always do it. You know, she tried her best, but she did it better than anybody that I've ever known.
You know, there are two things I want to say. The first one, and maybe the most important, is just let's focus on compassion and helping people in need instead of blaming them for their problems. We all need to lift each other up. Systems need to change, but that's takes tiny incremental steps of compassion and caring about how vulnerable people are doing, and offering empathy and validation and trauma-informed care. And I think that she would agree with that.
And I find myself pausing sometimes and thinking to myself, okay, stop and think, how would Erin handle this situation?
Yeah.
And then I kind of try to channel some of that. I mean, she was brilliant. She was whip smart. She knew the laws in and out.
She really knew how to take her personal story and not just use it to create change, but use it to give everybody else the tools to take their story and create change. She had this incredible ability to break down systems, explain how they work, explain how you can talk to them in a very particular way. Because, you know, when you're approaching a doctor or approaching, you know, the Office of Civil Rights or doing something with HIPAA or something like that, there's language that you need to know. There's tricks that you need to know. There's whole systems in place that most of us don't know, you know. So she had this amazing ability to take that deeply personal, you know, she had a lot of trauma and she would share it, but she didn't just share it, she'd say, okay.
But that person-to-person connection, she really saw the value in that and its importance. And I wish that she had more support herself, in a million ways, although she's, as I say, an incredibly strong person. But yeah, through her work, through her blog, through her legal work and mental health work and beyond, she every day, I would say, was making change.
So for one example of this would be, she created this care concerns document and she shared it with all of us. And I think that's pretty amazing thing to do, because it's almost like this document's on her website. So if you go to health as a human right and look for the care concerns document, you can see her document. She literally gave this to us to use. And it's almost like a resume. It looks like a resume, but it's like her healthcare history. And she would give this to doctors, and it would have at the top, it mentioned like different traumas that she had gone through, different surgeries and procedures she had had, and what maybe wasn't great about it or what was good about it. And then she'd go through like a list of like, you know, this is how I prefer to be touched, or this is how I prefer to be talked to. And then below that, she would actually have lessons for the doctors on what trauma-informed care is, because she talked a lot about trauma-informed care because of her own trauma.
Further. And so, you know, to see her fight that system tooth and nail, even as they did every possible thing to discourage her and try to make her appear to be a person she was not, it took an immense amount of strength. It really did. And like, you know, I don't want to say it's an inspiration or admirable, because it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
I just want as many people as possible to know her. And I feel a little bit frustrated, to be honest, that she wasn't on more people's radar until after she died.
I believe that she should be remembered as a person who was trying to make the world better for herself and for other people. And that people should also remember that she was a lawyer. You know, she had a life outside of being disabled, but it was also a big part of her life. I think that people should know that she was compassionate and warm and friendly, and, you know, really hard on herself about whether or not the things that she did in advocacy and activism helped or reached anybody, especially since she had some mixed results advocating for herself that, you know, I used to constantly try to convince her that weren't her fault, that a lot of people wouldn't have gone as far as she did in those instances to make things better for herself or for other people.
I would also add that patients need to stand up for what they need in the healthcare system, because we are very marginalized. We are in the power down position. And every time we don't stand up for what we need, it just perpetuates this sort of power differential that makes it harder for us to receive the care that we need. And the medical system really does need to be completely overhauled. And that is going to be the best for doctors' well-being as well, and everyone's well-being going forward. And patients taking little steps to stand up for themselves is maybe all that we can do, but it may be the most powerful thing, instead of just accepting the status quo, if that makes any sense. And I think Erin would agree with that as well.
I think that the best way to remember her and celebrate her is, I think, to honor her efforts. I think she would have wanted us to continue her efforts towards social justice, to give and to serve selflessly. And then also just to be compassionate to everyone who's suffering. I think if we did that, you know, wherever she is, she would be smiling down on us for sure.
Every day something comes up where I go, God, I just wish Erin was here. And I know I'm not alone. So it's just a gaping hole in our community. And I think we're always going to feel it. I don't know. I don't think a day is ever going to come where we don't think about Erin. So
the hardest thing about this has been, like, we can't say, I still wish she was here.
Right.
Because she was in so much pain and she just was too much. On that same level. I just wish everything would have been different. Every single thing in her life would have been different. So, you know, I could say I wish you were here because I miss her. We all miss her a lot.
She gave me this, which I keep close. It's kind of hard to read, but it's just a bracelet that says, "You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think." And obviously, I always felt the same way about her and wanted her to see that. So this just means a lot to me, among a million other things that we talked about and shared. Yeah, this is not only the words, but the context and the many conversations we had around this mean a lot.
The nugget is just kind of channeling all of that brilliance and that authenticity and the well of empathy that she was always so generous with, and trying to like emulate all of that in my own life.
As much as we focus on the advocacy, she was a person, and she was a whole person, and she was a great person, you know, funny and kind and just always there. And yeah, I think that's probably the thing I want to add. So.
She did inspire so many people, and she helped so many people, and every struggle that she had has helped someone else down the road, and will continue to do so. And that's a legacy.
Here for us, I would consider her a friend, and I know a lot of people who just were really touched by her and encouraged by her, and really, really miss her.
I guess for me anyway, what I plan to do is continue the fight. You know, she was tenacious, and I feel like that's going to get lost because of how she died. People might not realize how tenacious she was about everything that she believed in. And so for me, the most important thing is to keep fighting. And so one of the, like what I've been doing is I'm having an issue right now, and God, I wish Erin was here. It's one of those issues that Erin would know exactly what to do, but because of her, I know what to do. And so I'm actually using everything that she taught me to try to make a big change at the hospital that I go to, and how they handle certain elements of patient records and how they talk about us as patients. And I feel like if we can just keep using what she taught us, and little bit by little bit make those changes, that's what she wanted. That is all she wanted in life. And I feel like she gave us the tools. And now we just got to carry on, you know, for her.
So I know she didn't really want, or wasn't big on like tributes of any form, but I think she would agree to this, because we're basically telling people, you know, straight from the disability community, or straight from the chronic illness community, or however many intersections we have, women, you know, middle class, poor, you know, whatever, that she made a difference, and that she cared about people, and that there still are people out there that are, you know, in the midst of all of this. And
systems change by people making individual choices and making different little choices or choices to show compassion or love to another human being and to humanize people instead of othering them. It's so easy to do that, I think.
I can't say enough about her. I really can't. She's an amazing person, amazing friend, incredible advocate and activist, incredible voice for the disability community. One of the most amazing people I've ever had the honor to meet in my entire life. And I just hope that people will learn about her and look at her work, look at what she wrote, look at her blog even, get to know her.
And I think another thing is to remember what she taught us. Like I said about holding space, it's incredibly valuable. She has a post up on her blog about how to hold space, how to reach in, and she teaches you how to really do that. And I just think if we use her lessons and really care about people and keep up the fight because we care about people and because we're willing to listen and hold space, then that everything we do is going to honor her, you know.
There are resources out there, like her legacy that she's leaving with her blog and other things that people are going to keep going. And with these tributes, they're a living testament to advocacy and the power and the importance of advocacy, you know. And that was something I know she was a very strong believer in as well, helping people to become better self-advocates.
The only thing that I would add is that I'm gonna miss her terribly.
She's worth knowing. She's worth knowing about. Her work is worth reading. So I would just say, please, like, learn about Erin Gilmer, learn about who she was, because she was amazing. And she's amazing. She'll always be amazing.